All right, let me start with a question. First, raise your hand if you're here because you want to improve your life in some way, please. Raise hands. And raise it again if you don't want to improve your life, but you also want to enjoy your life as well. Have more time to enjoy it, please, by show of hands. Say aye. So at the moment, you as an individual, the life that you lead, ultimately, right now, every one of us has to follow some kind of approach or a strategy to live the life that we live, to help the people we help, to make the difference that we make, to make the money that we want to make. Now, the challenge for most of us is that that strategy that we've employed typically is a limited strategy because it typically limits the number of people that we can help. Because most of us, we haven't leveraged our time, we haven't leveraged our money, we haven't leveraged other people, build teams and people around us. So ultimately, it's us doing most of the work. Who's got a to-do list that's kind of long? I need to come to a seminar like this to learn more things to put on your to-do list. So ultimately, the biggest threat to most of us is time. The most limited resource of all, of course, is time. So I'm guessing the reason you decided to come here is where you want to be financially is making 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 times more income. And more importantly, of course, you want more freedom. More freedom to choose, to do what you want to do, with who you want to do it, when you want to do it. And the choice that you want to make isn't necessarily to spend time on beaches and lying around. What you really want to do is to have the kind of life that you choose to do the work that you love. Because all of us end up doing work, whether we're a business owner or an employee, that we don't really love, but needs to be done. The low-level priority tasks, does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And see, what the entrepreneur has to do is one thing. They have to take a gamble and a risk that they can employ somebody to do the lower-level tasks. The cost of employing those people to do the lower-level task, work you don't love, will be less than you could make by just doing the work that you love. Does that make sense? Raise it if you follow, please. But most people haven't taken that gamble yet. So if right now you're over here, and here's different for everyone, you might be here making 20,000, 30,000. You might be here very busy with limited time. You might be here making 50,000, 60,000, or more, 100,000, even more than that. But if you want to get over there, wherever there is for you, if you have a dream to be a millionaire, for example, or just to be more comfortable, if you're going to go from there financially to there financially, here in limited time to here loads of time, here doing the work that you don't necessarily love, but here only doing the work you love, here it's all you, here you've got a team of people around you to support you so you can do the work you love, how do you make the transition? How are you going to make the transition from where you are to where you want to be? Because the challenge is you've gotten used to this. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? This is the interactive part, by the way. Look, over the course of these 3 days, I'm going to be sharing a load of valuable, I believe, strategies, ideas. We'll be going through some stuff together to help you break through and all that kind of stuff. But if you and I were having a one-to-one conversation, now we're not today, but if you were, then if I asked you a question and you didn't answer it and you just stood there and went, then I probably wouldn't accept that. I'd probably say, I'd probably ask you again, wouldn't I? Or I'd probably think you didn't understand the question. And then I'd obviously repeat the question. So that's the same for me. I've got to gauge your understanding of these ideas and principles, and I can't ask you all individually. So I'm only going to have to judge collectively by the volume of your response, or how many of you do actually respond, to whether are we together, are we on target, is this all making sense, am I doing my job correctly? And if you don't give me that kind of feedback, clearly I'll have to assume I didn't explain that very well. And what I'm going to have to do is go back and explain it all over again a different way, because I'd rather teach you to a standard than to a time, if that makes sense. So ultimately, I need that response. And I know your concern is that you might be the only person calling out. It's a worry, isn't it? You might be going, yeah, and, oh shit, it's me. I'm the only one. But look, stop trying to fit in when you're born to stand out. The challenge, of course, for all of us is that we ultimately have a human need to fit in. We want to have that sense of belonging. We want to feel we're part of something. But yet, there is also a paradox with that. Not only do you want to feel like you belong to something, you also need to feel like you're an individual. You also want to feel that you're important. You want to feel that you're different. You want to feel that you're special in some way. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. But maybe over time, somehow, you were judged for being individual, judged for being a little bit different. And part of you then shrank down to fit with most others. Remember, it is not the many that change the world. It is the few. When Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, it was the one. But then 32 other people broke the record the same year. And so it's the innovators, the slightly different people, the square pegs in the round holes. They are the people, the interrupters, the challengers, the people that aren't always followers. We are the guys that begin to change our world or your community or your family because you have a different voice. So whether a group of people is as small as your family, to be a different voice within that family to make a change, or whether your voice is as large as the world, you have to accept that you're different. Don't let them round off your shoulders. If you're a square peg, don't let them round off your shoulders. Because if you do, you'll fall through to the mediocrity underneath. Does that make sense? Raise it if you follow. So you should be acknowledged even for being here. Now, to give up 3 days of your time, and we've already said that's the most valuable thing to do this. But when was the last time you spent 3 days on yourself? The 3 days of no memos, no phone calls, no interruptions, to design the next 10 years of your life. Things aren't happening by chance in your life, they're always happening by choice, whether it's a conscious choice or an unconscious choice. So if I ask you a question, will you please answer me? I know you have a voice in there, and that voice needs to be heard more. Because if you step up and be a leader, find more customers, then we're going to have to start using your intelligence and, more importantly, the intrinsic you that you are. Because you is special. We don't want to be like everybody else. We want to be that different voice. Does that make sense? So all those up for playing full out for the next 3 days, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Wonderful. So if right now is where you are here, and we just talked about what that might be for you, and where you want to be is over here. And let's face it, you would not be here today, you would not come to the event if you were happy with that. If you were comfortable with that, satisfied with that, if you had settled for that, then you wouldn't be here, would you? My marketing would bounce off, and you'd either judge it harshly or you just let it go. Does that make sense? Right? But not something resonating, which means, okay, I've been here for a while, I've reached a plateau of results, whatever results are, personal, financial, physical, whatever, and you want to get over there. So the question is, how do we do it? And the answer is twofold. Number one, firstly, we've got to adapt, change, improve our approaches, our strategies of what we do. How we go about making money, how we go about interacting with people, how we go about showing up in our relationships. We've got to make some changes in those key areas. But that's not enough. The second thing we have to do, the second part is, we have to improve this also. Because there is, of course, a strategy that goes with being over there, a series of strategies of how-tos, and a different set of strategies and how-tos to be over here. But just knowing what to do isn't necessarily going to be enough. Because if this is point A, where you are, and you want to be over here at point B, then that would imply a journey between the 2 points of A and B. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And obviously, if you're going on a journey from point A to point B, there is a way to get there, a pathway, a roadway, a map, a series of steps, if you will. But here's the point, and you know this from your own life and other people that you know. You can know the way. You can see the way. You can agree with the way. Does not mean that you will go on the way. Raise your hand if you understand, please. Raise your hands. And let me tell you why I think that might be. Because it's a key concept to remember. People aren't afraid of their problems. They're afraid of the solutions. You might want to write that down. People aren't afraid of the problems they have. They're actually afraid of the solutions. Let me explain why I think that's true. Raise your hand if you've got problems, please. Come on, raise your hand if you've got some sort of problems, have had problems, continue to have problems. Now, the problems that you have, problems always fall into two broad categories. You have problems that are called safe problems, and you've got problems that are called growth problems. Some problems are meant to be there for you to grow. See, a problem of having to end a relationship that's no longer serving you, see, that's a problem, but it's a problem that might grow you. Starting a new business and moving away from being an employee is a problem that you might be difficult to do, but it's a problem that will grow you, if that makes sense. Turning up and being honest with somebody is a problem, and it's difficult to do. It's a challenge to tell the truth, but it actually will grow you if you do it. Investing your money is a problem that's difficult to do, but it will grow your money if you do. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. These are good problems to have, sometimes called goals. The second type of problems we have are called safe problems. Here's what people do, and you haven't necessarily done this consciously, but you've definitely done it subconsciously, is that if you are afraid of taking an action, if somehow this action in the future carries with it the fear of loss, conflict, the loss of, it could be failure, rejection, hurt, being wrong. If there's a possibility that might happen and you believe it to be true, then you have to now create a world that keeps you stuck. You have to unconsciously create a world that makes that something you can't do. Does that make sense? And the easiest way to do that is to create what we call a safe problem. As in, it's a problem that keeps you safe. So in essence, you've currently got a psychology right now, let's broaden it, you've got a psychology that keeps you here. And that is its job. Its job is to keep you there. Because in some way, you've got it attached in your head that doing these actions might lead to pain. It might lead to a loss of some kind, a failure, a rejection, a hurt of some kind. So the reason people aren't afraid of their problems is because a lot of the challenges that people have, what we do is we then develop coping mechanisms to cope with the problems. Raise your hand if you understand what I mean by coping mechanism. The greatest metaphor I can think of to describe what I might mean by a coping mechanism is think of stabilizers on a bike or training wheels on a bike. You know when you were a kid, when you first learned to ride a bike, no doubt, probably, you had these little stabilizers or training wheels on the back of the bike. And they were a coping mechanism to help you cope with the job of moving forward on a bike and balancing. Can we agree, yes or no, guys? And they worked. And that's an appropriate coping mechanism to ride a bike for a 4-year-old. But in terms of other types of coping mechanism, things like keeping busy, things like smoking, things like overeating the wrong kinds of foods, ones like coping mechanisms called controlling things and other people, coping mechanisms like pleasing other people so they don't leave you, coping mechanisms like withdrawal, dissociation, distracting yourself, going back into living your life in your head rather than in your heart. These are all coping mechanisms. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And you have to understand, you did not come out your mother's womb like that. They're all learned behaviors to do with the environment that you lived in. We all have to find a way of living and coping. And the challenge with this is your coping mechanisms worked. They worked. In the same way that your stabilizer, the bike, worked. But there was a moment in time in terms of riding a bike, where at some point, a significant person in your life, mum or dad, normally dad, came to you and said, "It is time." And it was time to take the stabilizers off. And you remember that fear you had in that moment as a kid? Right? It was like, oh no, because you're attached, literally, to the coping mechanism. And so maybe, in terms of other coping mechanisms, you've learned not yet to take those off. So whenever you get into a scenario where fight or flight behavior might come out, as in you get into a challenging potential loss or fear-based situation, you automatically go to your coping mechanisms. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And obviously, again, it works in terms of keeping you safe. But there's a cost. And the cost is your potential. The cost is the loss of your potential. Think about it. If you're still riding a bike as an adult today with stabilizers on, you won't fall off. Probably not. But you are going to look stupid. And some of us look stupid at times when we react to a scenario and we lose ourselves for a moment and our shadow self comes out, coping mechanism. Everybody else can see it except you. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. And in that moment, but also, even if you did stay safe, but you look stupid, you can't go very fast. You can't navigate the twists and the turns on that bike with those stabilizers on. Does that make sense? You can only go within narrow parameters. And today in life, you're going to have to go fast. You're going to have to keep up with the changes and the demands that life brings upon you. The one thing we absolutely know to be true is that the one constant in your life is going to be change. But it's the one thing we don't mostly want to embrace. True or not true? Raise your hand if you think it's true. Another way to think about a coping mechanism is like this. Imagine that, like I've just suggested, this is a fear that you have. Now remember, fears are inactive and they are dormant in your psychology. Like you don't walk around the whole time being afraid of rejection. You don't walk around all the time being afraid of failure. You don't walk around all the time being afraid of being wrong. You don't walk around all the time being afraid of being judged. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? It's inactive. It's just a neurocircuit in your brain, but it's not firing off a lot of the time. However, if you want to become more successful, if you're currently in your comfort zone, that is not being fired off. You don't feel that feeling. Does that make sense? Because what you've done is the psychology has kept you playing the game at a level that means you can cope with this, because your coping mechanisms will work at this level. Your coping mechanisms do not work over there, because your coping mechanism isn't good enough to cope with that, or at least you don't think it is. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. All right? And that's the whole point. That's a perfect scenario. It's set up. And if you're happy with this, to have a level of life like this scenario, this setup is perfect. But if you want what's over there, if you want what's on the other side of your door, if you want what's right over there, then clearly you're going to have to move from point A through to point B, C, D, and so on. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And sometimes you do this. And what happens is initially you're focused. Initially you've got confidence. Initially you believe. Initially you've got that momentum and motivation to do it. And so you move away from your comfort zone, all happy and charged. You go to an event, for example. Yeah, we can do it. And then you go home the next day and you begin to start implementing the advice, meaning implementing some of the changes. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And the moment you start implementing the changes, inevitably at some point, this fear, whether it's a fear of rejection, failure, losing, a fear of being wrong, a fear of the limelight or whatever, it's quite likely at some point this will get lit up and fired off. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And that is when the coping mechanisms kick in. One of the coping mechanisms people have is called a crazy eight. Let me explain. Crazy 8 looks like this. Comfort zone, outside of comfort zone. So you're inside the comfort zone, you're comfortable, and it's meeting a human need in you to feel certain. Does that make sense, according to Tony Robbins? Raise hand if you understand, yes? So you feel a sense of stable datum, a sense of I'm comfortable, a sense of I'm safe, meeting a human need based on hierarchy of needs that we've understood from back in the war days. A hierarchy of needs. Safety is one of those, isn't it? Yes or no, guys? So we're comfortable, we're safe. And what happens is that then meets the need. But of course, eventually what happens is it's not enough. Because now you're confident enough, you get bored, and so you want to go for something new, whatever that new thing is. And so move over into certainty, into uncertainty, correct? Yes or no, guys? And again, that's fine until it reaches a threshold where you go to a certain level of uncertainty and your coping mechanism doesn't work. Or you just can't keep going, and this big fear gets fired off again. Does that make sense? Raise your hands. And so what you do is, you then come back into the crazy 8 again. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Who's experienced this? Who knows this pattern, please? Yeah, it's a yo-yo pattern, isn't it? Because think of it this way. Initially, you're going from where you are, you step outside that part of the crazy 8, you're moving out, but then as soon as you hit this, you now effectively run a pattern. Now, what we want to do, of course, is when this happens, we need the strategies and tools that ultimately keeps us going in the right direction. And that's what part of this event is about. It's giving you the tools that when this happens, as it inevitably probably still will, we're going to lessen it anyway, so we move this further over, so that this doesn't get fired off so quickly. But even inevitably, still we need tools to what we do. So when that happens is, again, your reaction sometimes is this suddenly looks very attractive again, doesn't it? Whereas this looked unattractive and boring previously, now it looks attractive again, and we get back here. And the moment we get back here, guess what we do? We immediately begin to justify why this is where we should be. And we form belief about that. We start disempowering questions like, who did I think I was? What am I trying to do? Come on, this is for other people. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the money for that. I'm too old for that. I'm too young for that. And we create a belief system that justifies why this is actually where we should be. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. That's not everybody's pattern. The crazy 8 isn't everybody's pattern. There's 2 more. The second pattern you have is someone when they hit this fear, this baggage, shall we say, of old, gets re-lit up again. Because they're A-types, they don't run back. They struggle on. So what they do is pick their problem up and carry it around with them like a very heavy weight on their back. And they're trying to move forward to success, but now so slowly, because this heavy weight is slowing them down. Raise your hand if you know what I mean by this, please. Now, I know this is not what you do, but you've seen other people doing this, yes? And the problem is, when you meet somebody that you come across who has this particular issue, and you make the horrible mistake of saying, how you doing? And then they tell you. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. And in essence, they begin to tell you their story of how challenging life is, how difficult it's been, and they tell you their story. And ultimately, as a result of it, you've been sitting there listening to them for 10 minutes, and ultimately, they give it to you. Right? And unexpectedly, it can hurt, can't it? And that's life, isn't it? It can suddenly be, and suddenly now what's happened is you've got all this heavy weight. Some of the stuff you were carrying around wasn't even yours. And the problem is then, if part of that starts infiltrating your mindset, then that story starts to affect yours. And then you're feeling a bit negative. And if you hang around with more than one of these persons, that then collapses on top of that one and on top of that one. And because of this human need to fit in, we start verbally agreeing. We think all their problems are actually correct and that they are powerless and they don't have the power to change. And it is the government's fault and it is their father's fault and their mother's fault or somebody else's fault. Does that make sense? And they're not living at cause. And we adopt that, we buy into that strategy, that whole idea, and there we are stuck with them. Because if you've got a peer group of people who are playing the game at that level, because this need to fit in, and you spend time around them, you can't have a different voice. You won't have a different voice. Even if you have inside, you won't say it out loud. Does that make sense? And it starts to, then your peer group starts to ultimately keep you at that level. Hey, Mike. There is one more. The third one. So number one is they hit it, they go back to what they know. Second one is carry it around but slow themselves down. And the third one is ignorance. What problem? What do you mean? What do you mean I'm reacting? What do you mean I'm not showing up for meetings? What do you mean I'm procrastinating and not following through? What do you mean? What do you mean I've been judging people harshly? What are you saying? I can't see it. And of course, everybody else can see it, except them. So let me ask you this. Which one are you? Which one of those three common patterns is your common pattern? Or are they context dependent? Do you sometimes, in relation to one person, do one of them, but in relation to another person or a different environment, work versus home, do a different coping mechanism? Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you've found that to be true. And it will be true. Because all our strategies are context and environmentally dependent as well. All right, so what we've said so far is, we want to be more successful. We're here, we want to be there. But something's going to block us along the way, and that's what's keeping us there. So over the course of this event, what we have to do is get real and really examine what that is, figure out what's blocking us, because it's only ever in your mind. You know the barriers to success? They're not really there. There is no wall, do you understand? There is no actual barrier to success. There's nothing actually there. It's not really there. It's a lie. Do you understand? Yes or no, guys? But you've got to find out what that lie is, see it for what it really is, and then find your power. Because that's why it's called power to achieve. You've always got the power. But most people don't use all the power that we have to create the lives that we deserve. Imagine the last day of your life, you get to meet the person that you could have been. Just imagine that for a moment. The very last day of your life, you bump into and get to meet the person that you could have been. That needs to be a really great conversation. You need to look at that person and say, hey, I'm so glad I didn't settle for. I'm so glad that I stepped up and became. Not a, oh my God, are you kidding me? Life, in essence, is good because death exists too. The greatest invention of life is death. The greatest invention of up was down. The greatest invention of left was right. The greatest invention of in was out. There is a huge, ever-increasing separation between two different things. And you've got to make up your mind how you're going to use the blend of in and out, the blend of left and right, and find your space and your place within that range. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Okay, so there's two things we've got to do. One is we have to understand our mindset. We're going to do that throughout this event, but we've also, of course, got to improve our strategy. I don't believe in just positive thinking, getting all fired up. If you have an ineffective strategy and you're fired up, it's a recipe for a lot of pain, isn't it? Right? Think about a fly trying to get through a window. You ever seen a fly in the summertime trying to get out of a window? It's like zip, zip, zip. Keeps hitting the window. Do you think if the fly went to a positive thinking fly seminar, that it's going to be any more likely to get... If it's all charged up, it doesn't matter. Science is going to tell you it's not going to work. The fly has to have a strategy to be able to step back far enough to see the bigger picture and say, the window's open at the top. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to find where our window is. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Don't keep bashing against the sides. We've got to be strategic as well as motivated at the same time. So that's what the blend of this seminar is. Ongoing, a little bit of strategy here and then to help you in business and all those kind of stuff, but then the motivational stuff to keep you there. And this magical blend is what's made this event so popular over the last 8 years. We started this event, the first time I ran these events years ago, my first audience was 26 people. Like today we have getting on for 1,000 or so people here. And that's why this event is popular, because it keeps being, other people keep talking about it and make it bigger and bigger. And we've got the blend exactly right, I think. So we have an amazing time together for 3 days. So all those who are up for that, raise your hands. Say aye. Stand up, please. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up, a bit of a stretch, please. Let's move our bodies around. Physicality. Wiggle your fingers. Lean over to your right side. Give a little moan there. If you feel good, say yes. Welcome. Okay. Now, just technically, we'll change this during the break. Some people who are gold aren't sitting in gold just because the gold section got full up more than we thought it would. So we'll rearrange gold so there'll be more gold seating available when we come back from our first break, just so you know. All right, so let's get into some content. So in your playbooks, turn over and let's start. Oh, by the way, put your name, if you haven't done already, on the back page. The very back page, you can put your name. Reason being, that during the event, you could become detached from this. Because there are times where we're going to be board breaking. Tonight, guys, you're all going to break a 1-inch thick wooden board with your bare hands. Oh my gosh, maybe not actually. The excitement in this room is like a fever pitch now, look at that. Guys, tonight we're going to be breaking through a 1-inch thick wooden board with our bare hands. Yes, this man's already got a broken board because he's got a fractured one. We'll be giving you a new one, don't worry. And tomorrow, you'll be bending a metal bar with your throat. So if you take your index finger, place it in the soft, fleshy part of your throat just above the clavicle bone. That is where the iron bar will be going. And a friend of yours, colleague, somebody you get to know or came with you, will have the bar in their throat. And you will walk together and become a kebab. And this bar will bend between you. It's the same, it's a steel bar they used to reinforce concrete blocks with. We're bending it with our throat. And then Sunday, where all this event is leading to is Sunday. Sunday is the most crucial day of all. On Sunday, we'll be doing a 4 to 4.5 hour intervention, which all this event is leading to. So what I've got to do is loosen you up a bit, get you to understand where we're going, discovery. But on the Sunday, we're going to do a 4.5 hour intervention that would change this room. It'd be unrecognizable. The state of this room will be unbelievable. Your state will be unbelievable. And in that state, which you've rarely got to, maybe never, you'll make some powerful decisions that you'll follow through on. We have to get into a state where you'll do stuff and say stuff and commit to stuff that your ordinary, everyday state doesn't get round to doing. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Say aye. Aye. All right. So make sure you've got that workbook, because when we do the board breaks and stuff and put all the chairs out to the side, that is when it can happen. So as long as your name's on it now, at least we can return it to you if it does get lost. All right, let's get into some content. Page 1 then. Let's turn firstly to some strategy, very briefly. Just some loose times here, by the way, if you haven't got today, some loose times. I say loose because this event, the nature of it is, it can under or overrun depending on audience size and how we interact with each other. So first break, I'm planning around 11 o'clock. That'd be for around 20 minutes. Then we've got lunch break today about 2 o'clock. Late lunch because it's a long day. And then close of play today around about 8, provided that we are on time. Board break should be starting around 7:30. Takes about an hour to half an hour to do, depending on audience size. So that's where we're at. Everybody happy with that? Yes or no? Okay, perfect. All right, strategy. So in order, therefore, for us to have the kind of lifestyle that we want and choice, clearly we all want to have a greater amount of money that provides us that choice and freedom. So we've got choice about what we do with that money, whether we're more philanthropic with it, whether we give more to our family, or that we increase our team size, whatever we want to do. So in terms of money, there are 4 basic ways to go about generating it. Number 1 is you could be an employee. There's nothing wrong right now with you being an employee. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a stage. It's just a stage for most of us. It's a coping mechanism. Think of it like training wheels on a bike. We all need to start with those training wheels. Nothing wrong with that. The goal in being an employee should be to learn about business. If you're an employee, you want to learn how business works. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? Well, it's good to work within an entrepreneurial type of team. So you can learn the processes of what it really takes to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. So you should consider that just tutorage. Consider it your education in being a business owner eventually, right? The problem with the limitation of the coping mechanism for having a job is that you basically work for somebody else, which means you don't have as much control. You have to go where they tell you to go. You have to do what they kind of tell you to do within certain parameters. So you work for somebody else. The next level of movement for you, the next level of strategy, is to move to being self-employed. Self-employed. And many of you fall into that category right now. You are indeed self-employed. So you have more freedom. You have more choice. Who's self-employed, please? Raise hands. Look around you. That's incredible. And of course, today, there are way more self-employed people than there was years ago because the barriers to entry are much lower now because of things like the internet and the ability to reach more people more easily. And of course, we're talking about that over the course of this event. The challenge with this one is you are going to make more money because the bottom, of course, is time, and the left-hand axis is money. So you're making more money, but you are spending more time. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. It's not a 9-to-5 thing anymore, a 9-to-6. If you're self-employed, you rarely put that work down. Especially now that mobile device is constantly distracting you and getting messages coming in. You're probably even still doing some of that stuff on holiday, in the little gaps that you've got. You're still doing that stuff, so work is carried around with you. But predominantly, as a self-employed person, the money is made through you. Meaning you're still doing the work, but you're working directly with clients rather than for a boss, if that makes sense. Raise your hand if you understand. So you're a freelancer, you're a consultant, you're a coach, you're a mentor, but ultimately it's mostly just you. Maybe you and your wife or husband, but it's really just you and maybe one other team member, maybe they're part-time, but you haven't got a big team of people around you. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. So the problem with that is time. And there's only a limit to how many people you can help, and so you'll reach a plateau. So with a self-employed, you work directly with clients and typically on a one-to-one basis. Next. The next evolution, and by the way, these two strategies are ineffective. So the two that are effective are, number 1 is you being a business owner. And you might think you're a business owner because you have a company, but unless your company is leveraged through a team of people that you've built around you and technology systems that ultimately mean that the workflow doesn't require you to do manual tasks all the time, unless you've done those 2 things, then you're really just still self-employed. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Total transparency, my business turns over about £7 million a year, and we have a team of 10 full-time people. So I'm leveraged for those 10 people, which means I don't hardly ever go to my office. I just do the work that I love. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Okay? And there's a way I'm going to show you how to go about doing that in the course of these 3 days. So systems and people work for you when you're a business owner. And the last type, of course, is you becoming an investor. Or not being an investor, but at least investing, if you not call yourself an investor, but you are engaging in the strategy called investing. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? Investing your money in stocks, shares, commodities, or cryptocurrencies, or whatever it might be. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Okay? And in this case, systems and people don't work for you, money also works for you. So these two strategies are what we're going to focus on Empower to achieve. So if right now you're an employee, we're going to have you leap to business owner. If you're currently, right now, you are a self-employed person, we're going to get you to go up to business owner. And if right now you're a business owner, we're going to improve your current strategies so you become even more efficient as a business owner. And every one of you is also going to become or also engage in the task of investing your money, even if it's just small amounts to build up in the beginning so we can get compound interest working in our favor. Does that make sense? Happy with that? Yes or no, guys? If you are, raise your hand and say, I. Turn the person left and right and say, I'm enjoying it even though he's small. So how did you get here? Not today, but how did you arrive to be the person you are? What's your story? What's your story about how you become the person that you are today? Every one of us has a story. My story began really, in terms of what I'm doing today, back in the July of the year 2000. I was sitting in the viewing gallery of court number 4 at the Old Bailey in London. As I looked down in this room, official-looking people wearing their capes and their wigs, the wooden panels around the room. And there she is, standing right there in the witness stand. Her chin's on her chest. She's been examined and cross-examined. It hadn't always gone particularly well. Her own counsel. Mrs. Harrington, is there anything you'd like to add finally as you finish up your testimony? I'd like to say something directly to the accused. Something that I should have said a long time ago. No. I should have said no. But you told me Mum would be sick if I said anything. I believed your lies. I'm not going to carry this around anymore. I'm not going to live your secret, your lie anymore. It doesn't matter what these 12 people here say in the jury. I've stood up, spoken out, and I've said what I needed to say. It's over. Thank you, that's all. As she was excused, there was a hushed silence in that courtroom, probably the defining moment in that court case, as she gave evidence that something happened in her childhood. Now, luckily we won the case. And that's also what we wanted. We want to get resolution, we want to solve this problem, but it didn't work. Because sometimes when you climb a mountain that you've been climbing for a long time, the several years that we climbed this mountain to overcome this challenge, sometimes you get to the top of the mountain and you think you've won, only then to realize it's not the top of the mountain. It was just the first peak. And you look up and there's a much bigger mountain now left to climb. A few days later, I find her sitting in our lounge and she's rocking backwards and forwards on our sofa, staring up at the ceiling and becoming withdrawn and becoming dissociated. And I'm freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I think I know why. Because one by one in that same witness stand, to protect the accused, came out firstly her aunties one by one, to protect the accused and call her a liar. And then her brother, calling her a drama queen, making it up. And then finally her mum. Imagine your own mother the person who brought you into this world, calling you a liar in front of court and not believing these terrible lies, these terrible things. So her coping mechanism was to withdraw, to dissociate. Does that make sense? To detach. And ultimately become depressed as the final part of that. Depression's all about just going inside, isn't it? And I'm trying all sorts of things and nothing's working. So out of desperation, I looked around for resources, what to do. I end up checking her into a hospital, the Priory Hospital, admitting her. The doctor said, well, as I sat there telling him what had happened, he said, well, Mr. Harrington, it's very clear. From everything you told me, your wife, she is depressed. I thought, well, no shit, Sherlock, I could have told you that myself. So we have to admit her to the hospital. She'll be there for several weeks, of course, and they take her some tablets. She has this unbalanced serotonin and dopamine in her brain, so we're going to solve that with these tablets and see how we go from there. Now, I didn't think this would work, but 6 weeks later, I'm proved right. Because 6 weeks later, she's still trashing her room on a regular basis. She's throwing things, smashing things, breaking things. She is smoking. She wasn't before. Taking illegal substances. I don't know where she's getting them from. And I am freaking out, not knowing what to do. So around about 6 weeks we're into this. I've seen her in hospital. We've got 3 young kids at this point. I'm running a business and trying to run a business, look after the 3 kids by myself. I come home late one night. I'm not sleeping too good. I relieve the babysitter, sitting straight back on that sofa. And I'm finding a channel to fall asleep to. And I'm hopping through the channels. And I come across an infomercial on a late-night television shopping channel. And this late-night television shopping channel advert is from Tony Robbins. It's a 30-minute infomercial. And he's selling his product called Get the Edge. I thought, I'll give it a go. I need something. Even not for her, I need something for me. Because sometimes the supporter also struggles, do you understand? Because I was like low, really low. It's been difficult living with her anyway because she went through this, and now this has happened, I've got no solution, I have nowhere to go. But as I called up the company, I speak to a lady called Marshonda Henderson, and I think she still works for Tony. And she convinced me, she was so good at getting me over the line, she convinced me not to buy his $300 product, but instead to spend $30,000 on both of us to get into his Mastery University. And this is several different classes over the course of 18 months to 2 years. So I check her out a few days later out of the hospital against all medical advice, because there's a UPW in the States coming up, and that's the first one. It's better than that. But anyway, a few days later, we flew over to the Orange County Convention Center in Florida to go to his Unleash the Power Within UPW seminar. And now, picture the scene, not too dissimilar to this one. Several thousands of people in the room, giant screens at the front. And people walk in. And unlike mine, when you walked in, there were videos playing and music. There's not just music, there's dancers on the stage. And there's like about 12 dancers in this sort of diamond, this sort of triangle formations, a lead dancer at the front, and the audience come in. And I seem to have missed a trick because everybody seems to know something I don't know. Because everyone's also doing the same dance. And we're sitting in front rows, right about where you guys are sitting. Front row seats as VIP guests, since we're also in the Master University. And of course, everyone's doing the dance, and sure enough, you feel like you have to fit in, so, you know, you're doing the dance. I look across at my wife, she's going through the motions, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I'm doing the dance, and it suddenly occurs to me, I'm here. American, happy clappy, I'm here. Anyway, about half an hour in, Robbins is on stage. He's larger than life, literally. His content's good, it's insightful, it's definitely different. He's definitely square peg in round hole. He's using sometimes swearing language to jolt people. I'm thinking, this is kind of different, this is real. No, it's better than that. And half an hour in, I'm hopeful now. And then he asked us a question. He asked the audience a question. I'm looking for someone in the room who's depressed. Who in this room right now is depressed? Raise your hand if you're depressed. So I quickly put up my wife's hand. And as luck would have it, he chose her to work with one-on-one at the front of the room to a live intervention. Now, I've never seen one of these before. I don't know what's taking place. There's a camera on the stage looking directly at her, beaming her image on the giant screens. So even though we're sitting in the front, everyone can see her face and the nuances of what takes place in this intervention. I pray, I hope he knows what he's doing. He begins. So you're depressed. Tell me about that. I think it's a really shit question to start with. So I'm thinking, look, dude, she's been in this big problem state. I've just spent X number of weeks trying to get her out of this problem, not thinking about it, and you're freaking getting her right back into it again. Because I'm thinking she's going to get depressed. She starts talking about it. And I'm right. Just a few minutes into this interaction, she's on her chair talking to Tony, but then she's becoming more and more unresponsive to some of his questions, taking longer to answer, more pensive, more thoughtful. She's rocky. She starts to get into that position like, oh no. She starts rocking backwards and forwards. She gets up onto the chair, coils up in a ball, rocks backwards and forwards, and she starts to shut down. And I'm thinking, brilliant. I look at the screen, I see a tear well up in the corner of her eye and roll right down the side of her nose. I feel guilty, I feel trapped, I feel I'm in this stupid place. I want to get the hell out of there, but I'm jammed and stuck right in that seat. Let me ask you a different question. Have you ever had an explosive orgasm? No, not you. Sorry, I didn't mean you specifically. But no. And she went from being in like a state of depression to, huh? I'm just curious, have you ever had an explosive orgasm? I can't tell you that. Oh, really? You seem to be comfortable telling us all about this depressing episode that happened in your life. But you can't tell us about this joyous one? Something to think about. Can you do it now? I'm sorry? Well, you were sitting there and you became more depressed. You could do that now in the seat. So can you do the ecstasy now? What? No. And Robbins turns to the audience, bit of social proof. Ladies and gentlemen, can she do it now, yes or no? 5,000 Americans like, yeah! So, with a bit of encouragement from Tony Robbins and 5,000 encouraging Americans, she starts to change her state, and it starts to resemble a scene from When Harry Met Sally. And Robbins is doing his NLP, hypnosis, voodoo stuff, and he's like eliciting the state. Go back in your mind. See what you saw. Yeah, that's it. Say to yourself what you said to yourself. Breathe the way you breathed. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And he's matching and bringing her breathe in. Her state starts to come up and change. The Americans get the whooping along and cheering and clapping. It's getting flushed. She's getting flushed in the face. They give her a microphone. It's got a little red head on it. She's making noises. The noise gets amplified in the room. Roberts is like, oh, there, yeah. It's getting even more. It's building up, building up, building up, building up. And you've got to remember, there's a camera on the stage looking directly at her. And I'm just in the shot. And honestly, all I remember thinking to myself is, how come I've never seen this before? Anyway, in that one single intervention, actually her life did change. She did throw away her tablets and become a different person again. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, how incredible. How incredible that here's here's someone that's a bit unique, a bit different, maybe a bit crazy, who knows, but thinking outside the box. We spent 6 weeks and we got no movement. In fact, got worse. And now inside 45 minutes to an hour, we've shifted this thing already. And a voice went off inside of me that went, maybe that's why you're here. Maybe the reason you're here is because you could be like Tony Robbins. Because you've been a supporter for one. Why don't you become a supporter for many like he has done? Which is closely followed by another voice that said, who the bloody hell do you think you are? But come on, who's got a voice like that? Come on. Like, I wanted to be like Tony Robbins. I wanted to speak on big stages. I wanted to be best-selling, international, whatever. Like, and I'm sitting there, right now, I'm sitting there next to my wife, right? And I'm thinking, I want to be like him. I want to be like that guy. I want to speak on big stages, do those. I want to be able to do all that. And I thought, but Andy, come on. You can't be like him. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Look at you. His teeth are bigger than you. Now, isn't it strange, actually, that we all seem to have some version of that? I'm to something. I'm to X. What's that for you? What's been your I'm to X that's been something that's blocked you and stopped you going beyond that? Or is it I'm not enough of X? Either it's I'm to X or I'm not enough of X. Does that make sense? And that's what it was for me. So I thought, who's going to listen to me? I don't know anything. I don't know NLP. I don't know hypnosis. I don't know voodoo like you do. I don't have any content, don't have any ideas. You know, I'm nobody. No one's going to listen to me. Who's going to come and listen to me speak? So I went back and carried on doing what I was doing. I didn't follow that dream. Now, about 6 months later, we also have another seminar in this series. This one's called Date with Destiny. And of course, this is the event that, if you've seen I'm Not Your Guru, it's on Netflix, is the one that is based around. And again, we're now in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. Again, a big room, several thousand people. And I'm sitting like row 22. My wife's over here in row 4 because they split us up into different teams so you can have your own experience. And the last day, Robbins asked us to pair up the stranger. I'm meant to sit right next to a stranger about that far apart, looking directly into their eyes for about 5 minutes and be really present. Not something we do often, have eye contact with somebody we don't know, or even we do know for long periods of time in the day. Certainly not intensely for 5 minutes. So actually, I'm quite an introvert by nature, so it's not my nature to go and go and do this kind of stuff. Certainly not at the time. So I'm kind of trying to find a partner how most introverts try to find a partner. Extroverts are like, yo, let's do it. Introverts are like, giving the eyes. And if you meet another introvert, they go, okay. Right? And that's what was happening to me. And then the exercise begins, everyone's pairing up and starting this exercise, and I don't have a partner. Then it occurs to me that the only person I can see from row 22 that didn't have a partner was Tony Robbins. So I walked up to the stage, past all the security guards, I get Mr. Robbins' attention, and I motioned to him, would he be my partner for this exercise? And to my complete surprise, he agreed. And I got to have 5 minutes of intimacy with Tony Robbins that changed my life. Because in that moment, I was so grateful. I was honestly so grateful for everything that he'd done for me and my family. I was so overwhelmed with everything that happened in the moment. I just felt this overwhelming release or relief or something, and I was just weeping. I was literally weeping and crying uncontrollably during this exercise with him. Now, I don't know because I was crying and he connected that with me, or what I lit up inside of him, I don't know. What I do know is he started crying as well. And in that moment, I made a life-changing decision. I said, you know what? I want to be able to do what you do. Everything that's happened in my life must have brought me to this moment for a reason. all this challenge, all this pain must be for a reason. I can either not recognize that and not serve with it and be selfish for everything I've learned, or I can investigate this even more, have a thirst for personal development and mindset. And even though I might be a Tony crony in the beginning, right? Eventually, maybe I might have something about myself that other people might want. And that's what I did. I went on that journey. And then I came back, quit my business, and started putting on seminars. My first seminars had like 10, 15 people in them. And ultimately, I was trying to find my way. And it took me 10 years to get to the goal, the ridiculous goal I set that day, which was to be able to speak alongside Tony Robbins and share the stage with him. But in 2011, I walked out on stage at the Excel Centre in London to around 10,000 people following Tony Robbins on stage. And since that time, I've had the pleasure of sharing the stage with many other also incredible, talented, entrepreneurial, thought leader, amazing people, and shared the stage in giant arenas, the O2. And she's little old me. I'm nobody special. But I've learned to do some things that really do help people. And, I'm not some American that's flown in that you can't relate to. I'm a guy that lives not too far from here in Kent. So hopefully everything that you see in me is something you believe you can do too. Because if I can do it, trust me, everyone can do it. I became a Sunday Times best-selling author. I didn't even pass English CSE, if you remember what that was. Right? So, with that said, let's dive in. I want to share with you some concepts and ideas that will form the basic foundations of what we're going to do in relation to the mindset part of this event. So, again, in your notebooks, if you go over the page again, so the two things we're going to focus on primarily in this event is these two strategies plus the mindset. Constantly flipping backwards and forwards between the two to keep you active in your experience. All right. So, first question. This is the page you should be on. It should be a head that looks somewhat like this in your page. You got that piece? Yes? There's loads of boxes in yours, but they will now suddenly appear on mine. So, a greyed out lady. It should be the next page. It should be easy enough. That's the one. Got some red arrows on it. A black cloud, a big zammy thing. That's it. All right, that's the one. All right, question. Question. Would we agree, can we agree that the opportunities for you to have a better quality of life and better quality results exist? Right. So let's put in the first box, opportunity. All right, perfect. Now, what's interesting is this, is that ultimately, even though there are opportunities around us every single day, most of us don't tap into those. So, of course, even though opportunities exist, your mind has to process those and create a meaning out of them. So I'm going to get a bit technical now. There are 3 hardwired programs that run constantly in the background of your computer. Can we agree that your mind is somewhat like a computer, yes or no? Right. But a computer is only as good as the operating system that runs it. Now, if you are using an outdated operating system today, so you've got a computer, but it's running on an old, outdated software operating system. It's running on Windows NT, Windows 95, or DOS, right? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to the use of that computer? It's going to be really slow and cumbersome, unsupported, and it's going to slow down or crash. Yes or no, guys? I'm suggesting that's somewhat like your mindset. Your mindset has to constantly be upgraded. In the same way that Apple and Microsoft have to constantly send you upgrades. Yes or no, guys? Raise your hand if that's true. But how many times do you go, remind me tomorrow? You know when the thing comes up? Upgrades are available? Nah, remind me tomorrow. Well, maybe that tomorrow is now today. So the 3 programs that run in your operating system are, number 1, as you get into the area where an opportunity exists, the first strategy is called delete or disregard. Delete or disregard. You either delete it or completely disregard it. In the same way that your spam folder has you disregard information that's no use to you, your mind can do the same. So rather than get drawn into crappy drama or shitty stuff that just fills up your head, but doesn't move you forward, but just keeps the stuff going, you can ultimately have a life where you have a series of information that comes in that only resonates with what you want to pay attention to. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. The challenge is some people's life is a junk email folder. Do you understand what I mean? Yes or no, guys? The information is random and it's other people's business, not yours. So ultimately, we've got to learn how to do this. Look, your brain is constantly disregarding or deleting information or stimulus or stimuli. I'll prove it to you. How much attention were you paying to how your shoe feels on your left foot before I mentioned it? Am I right in thinking you completely disregarded it? Yes or no, guys? Or deleted it? Raise your hand if you understand. So was the experience of your shoe being on your left foot, was it there before I mentioned it, yes or no? Yes, because you didn't just put your shoe on, did you? So obviously the feeling of your shoe on your left foot was there the entire time. But your brain has learned to disregard it. Over time, it says there's no point in constantly putting our conscious focus on this because there's no benefit to it. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. This might all sound very interesting, but who cares? Let me give you another example. Raise your hand if you drive a car. All right. So I want you to go back in your mind to the first time you drove the car that you're owning today. You drove away from the showroom, the person you bought it from, you're happy, you're excited, you're driving it around, you're happy. And then, in the corner of your eye, you notice another car that's now the same as the car that you're driving. Have you had this happen, yes or no? And then you see another one, and another one, and another one. And you go, bloody hell, there's a lot of these cars on the road, they're not my car. So again, were those cars there before you bought your car, yes or no? Yes. But you had disregarded it because it was irrelevant. So how many other things have you disregarded? Have you disregarded all the love that's around you all the time? At times, at least. Have you disregarded all the support that's available to you? Have you disregarded the money-making strategies that are available to you and around you? My suggestion is that you probably have. How many houses do you think you've driven past that if you had the right strategy, you could have spotted an opportunity to go buy that property, potentially for no money down, and done something with that property that might have turned into 10, 20, 30, or 40, or 50,000 pounds? How many houses do you think you've gone past where that was an opportunity of a possibility? Would it be in the hundreds or maybe the thousands or beyond? Yes or no, guys? Raise your hand if you understand, yes? How many times have you seen a company with innovative, great products, but you didn't buy the shares? You probably bought their product instead. If you buy their product, you probably should buy their shares if you like their product. Especially if they've got good management and good vision and good visionary leaders. Yes or no, guys? Raise your hand if you understand. How many times have you, for example, bemoaned the change in currency when you change up your money without thinking you could be on the other side and you could be trading that currency if you knew how? How many business opportunities have you missed out on because you see a problem to something, you moan about the problem, but don't think, what's a solution I could create here that clearly loads of people need? Because business is only ever solutions to problems that exist, don't they? Yes or no, guys? And new problems are being created all the time. So your job is to come up with solutions to solve those problems. But if you haven't got a solution mindset, then you'll literally delete those things. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. All right, so that's deletion. The second pattern that runs in your mindset is that if you don't delete or disregard it, what you then do is you distort it. You distort it. And your distortion happens like this. When you read a novel, information coming in. That's information coming in, yes or no, guys? As you read a novel, you're reading black text on a white page. But your brain will distort the words into images. Correct? Yes or no, guys? You'll even experience feelings that aren't really there because you take the word and you fire off a biochemical storm inside of you that makes you feel a certain way. You feel a thrilling moment, a sensual moment, a sexual moment, a funny moment. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you agree. And it feels real in that moment, doesn't it? Yes or no, guys? But it's not real. You made it up. Entrepreneurs take something and make something out of nothing. So you have the ability to use the most important thing. It's the best nation in the world. That is your imagination. The best nation in the world is your imagination. And you were good at it when you were a kid. When you were a child, your imagination was present, active, and used many, many times a day. Agreed? Come on, yes or no, guys? And that's what you've got to understand about entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have to be creators. You've got to see something and you've got to use your creative force to see something you want to create and then make it the way you see it. Does that make sense? When you had a box as a kid, you turned it into an airplane. You turned it into a train. You were creative. Does that make sense? But come on, guys, yes or no? But many of us have switched off that creative force. Let me tell you why I think that might be. Raise your hand if during your childhood, at some point, whether between age 0 to age 18, you had pain, loss, failure, rejection, being made to be wrong. Please raise your hand if any of those things happen. Right. Potentially, and maybe, you compartmentalize yourself. And what you might have done, if you imagine this is your timeline, and down there on your timeline is your past, and over there on your timeline is your future. Maybe, somehow, without knowing you'd done it, you left yourself behind. The earlier you that wasn't good enough, strong enough, fast enough, tall enough, or whatever enough, or was too much of something. Does that make sense? Maybe you grew up, but you left them behind. Raise your hand if you got some notion of what I'm trying to say. Think a picture right now of you in a school photograph. Whatever earliest memory you have of that. Imagine that little person's waiting down there for you. Waiting for you to reclaim it. Because let me tell you something else. You'll never have any long-lasting success and fulfillment and happiness and joy unless you bring them with you. And we've grown up with this other self. And we say we need to find ourselves. I'm lost. You can't find the fulfillment. Of course not, because you're fragmented in some shape or form. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And you need that little you, because that little you has all of their dreams and hopes and beliefs and creativity that you need to manifest what you want today. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. So who likes to sound on day 3 of this event, if you can go and recapture that person and bring them back. If I have a technique to do that, if I can actually have you embrace that little you and bring them in, I'm telling you, even if you aren't any more successful, you'll at least enjoy your life amazingly more. Does that make sense? Who's up for that? Raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Person, perfect. All right, so that, therefore, is distortion. Let me give you another example of distortion. Who likes going to the movies? Right, now when you go to the movies and the showing time is 7:30, what time is the movie going to start? That's right. So what are you going to watch between 7:30 and 8 o'clock? What are you going to end up watching? That's right, adverts and trailers. And they work, don't they? Yes or no, guys? Do you think advertisers know something? What's an advertiser's job? The answer is to create a desire. To install and create a desire in you for their product or service. That's it. And the way they do that is twofold. 1, get you in state. 2, flash the product. Link the state to the product. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? And it bloody works. Especially in those big theaters where you're in, peripheral vision. Giant screen, you have to stare at a wide screen, don't you? Yes or no, guys? That puts you into unconscious focus. Because peripheral vision opens a trap door to your unconscious mind. Which means your critical faculty, your reasoning part of your brain, is at least suspended for a while. Does that make sense? while you stare blankly at a screen. So let's see if this is true. Just join in if this makes sense. A Mars a day helps you. No, it doesn't. But they made you believe it. And that jingle you haven't even heard for over 20 years. But all I had to do was press the first part of the jingle, and then you went salivating like Pavlov's dog. What's the reality of a Mars bar? It's going to make you fat, isn't it? It's going to give you diabetes, isn't it? So when you have an empty, insecure feeling inside, as you inevitably do during the day, what's set up is when you have that feeling, you need this to fill yourself up. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Advertisers know. If you do not learn and consistently do advertising in your own mind, somebody else is going to get in there and do it for you instead. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. The trailers, it works for the trailers of the movies that are coming up, not the previews, like the little trailers. It comes up and they show you the funniest bits or the scariest bits or the most thrilling bits or the fast action bits and the most romantic bits. And they show those bits, and in a 3-minute movie, you feel moved emotionally, don't you? Yes or no, guys? So much so that sometimes you nudge the person next to you and say, looks good, that, didn't it? We should go to that. And it's coming soon. And you'll invest your time, most important resource, and your money in going to watch that movie. What if instead now you learn to do that for your life? And you consistently advertise in your own mind so that your mind gets excited about the preview of life's coming attractions. And what if you could then invest your time and your money in that story being a real story about you and your hero's journey rather than Will Smith's hero's journey? Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Say aye. So that's what we're going to do. The third pattern is that you also have a habit of overgeneralizing. Human beings have a habit of generalizing. It's another software pattern. Now, what does that mean? Think of generalizing as categorizing. Think of it as categorizing. In the same way that a computer needs to categorize files to put them in appropriate folders. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Your brain is doing that all the time. So it's doing it naturally anyway. The question is the filing system good? Because you might overgeneralize. In the past, if up here, the stimulus coming in has been a bad thing that happened, a loss or a failure. And so what happens is this opportunity comes up, but what it does is it fires off an old wound inside yourself, and the meaning you attach is overgeneralizing, say, see this opportunity? That looks like it's a bit like that other thing that I did in the past, and that other thing fucked up, so this one will fuck up as well, so let's stay the hell away from it. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. So that's why your life tends to be a Groundhog Day, because if you always evaluate things based on past conditioning, you're just going to repeat the same thing over and over again with maybe small changes here and there, but not big breakthroughs. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. So a generalization is also a belief. Can also be a belief. So here's an example. This is a door. It is an ordinary, everyday door. I did a test with this. As in, I asked a number of people, 200 people, to go down this hallway. It gave them £5 for doing it, to go into this waiting room and wait on the other side. But it wasn't about being in the waiting room, it was about trying to get through the door. That's an ordinary door. What would you normally do? You're going to put your hand on the handle, you're going to push it down, you're going to maybe pull it up, you're going to slide it, and if none of those strategies work, your past conditioning says something about the door, doesn't it? Which means the door would be, which one? Locked. But it isn't locked, it's just the hinges are on the same side as the handle. So now you have to push there rather than there. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. Here's the interesting stats. 196 people consider the door to be locked. Only 4 people got through the door and didn't come back and say the door's locked. And this is about the level of success we see. So you have to ask yourself the question, which group do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the 196 or do you want to be in the few? The few or the many, yes or no, guys? The few. Now, the question becomes, what do people typically do in the 196 in real life? If this represents the door to success, and you try to open your door to success like everybody else, like the 196 masses try to open their door to success, and it doesn't work, what do people typically do? No, they don't give up. They try harder what doesn't work. Yes or no, guys? They put more effort into trying something that's not working, like our fly, hitting against the wall. Now, eventually, when they try all these different things, they are, you think, going to give up. But that's not it either. It's worse than that. They don't just give up. They then form a club called the I Can't Get Through My Effing Door Either Club. Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Right? So all a big group of the 196 get together and say, how you get on with this door? Did you get through your door? No, couldn't get through my door either. What shit, isn't it? What a lot of rubbish. And so what happens is the 196 start to gather up and create momentum and a belief set around doors. Does that make sense? Right? But that door could be internet marketing. Didn't work for somebody, so they formed the 196 rather than trying to find the 4. It could be property. Didn't work first time round, doesn't work, find the 196. If you go anywhere and you ask them, how do you get on with the property thing, you're going to find more losers than winners. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. So what you've got to do, no matter what it is you've got to find your 4. Because what you want to do when things don't work is you've got to find someone that knows how to do it. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't find them because they're on the other side of the door. But occasionally, an entrepreneurial person that does it will come out, you'll see them, an opportunity, and what you've got to do in that moment is talk to them, ask them, get their strategy, follow it. Does that make sense? Yes or no, guys? To the letter, follow the strategy. Don't try to mess it up, because if you mess up, if you do something, you put an extra step in that's not meant to be there, that might be the very thing that screws it up. Does that make sense? Raise hand if you follow. So you've got to be coachable. You've got to be, many of you have done really well. But the challenge is, what got you here to that level of results won't necessarily get you there. Raise your hand if you understand what I'm talking about. What got you there won't get you there. In fact, what got you there might stop you going over here. Because the strategies to make, £50,000, those strategies might stop you from making £300,000. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. As in, self-employed, no problem. You could probably make 50 to 100 grand. But a self-employed person with you doing all the work, that's going to prevent you making $1 million. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. Which means you've got to let go of what you know and embrace what you don't know. And that, again, is what this event is about. But you have to soak it up, listen to it, even when it's difficult, you're tired, you've got to break through. Sometimes in this event, you're going to want to run away. You're going to think, I want to get the hell out of here, right? Because that's a pattern showing up in you. Does that make sense? But I promise if you stay the distance, I promise you a completely different set of beliefs about what's capable for you to achieve and the momentum to go and do it. So all those are up for that, please raise your hand and say, aye. Now, by the way, how fast does all that processing happen? So an opportunity comes up. So how quickly are we deleting, disregarding, distorting, and generalizing? How fast? How fast? Instantly, like a click of a fingers, yes? But what's interesting is this, is even though you can have 2 people experiencing the same opportunity and they will view it differently. So even though there's one event happening right now in this room, you're all seeing it and experiencing it differently, aren't you? Yes or no, guys? And that's because you're different to the person sitting next to you. And how are you different? You've got different filters. You've got different amount of baggage. You're deleting, distorting, and generalizing differently to the person sitting next to you. Does that make sense? Okay, raise your hand if you understand that. So what specifically causes you to delete, distort, and generalize differently? Let's take a quick look at some of that now. Here's what happens. We're going to look at this in more detail. We're not going to look at this in detail now. Over the rest of the event, we'll look at this in more detail. Your wounds will affect how you delete, distort, and generalize. Wounds meaning past hurts, past losses, past failures, past rejections. So all wounds which lead to fears. The beliefs that you have about what you can do, what you can't do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what you must, what you mustn't do. Beliefs like, if I do X, then Y. If X leads to Y, and Y is something you think is not good or painful, you won't do X. So now you've got a belief that stops you doing X. Does that make sense? So therefore, the belief is a coping mechanism. If I do X, then Y. So therefore, that belief is actually training wheels on a bike. It will stabilize you because you're not going to do X. Also, the questions that we ask ourselves will determine your focus. Some of us have had bad questions. When shit stuff happens, we ask bad questions. Why me? Why now? What's wrong with me? Why does this always happen to me? And as soon as you fire that off, the Google part of your head goes up and finds the answer. Just the same way when you type into Google a question, it comes back with a reference that matches. So you go, why does this happen to me? Your brain comes back because you're an idiot. And that makes you feel bad, and then you ask another disempowering question, you end up in this loop. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow. We have to break that pattern with an empowering question rather than a disempowering question. More about that another time. Next are drives. What's driving us? You need to know how you are intrinsically set up and what your major drives are. What drives you? And every one of us has come up with ways to meet those drives within us, to meet those needs. But some of those ways you've come up with are disempowering. They meet the need, but they don't move you forward. They meet the need, but keep you safe rather than taking a risk. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow that. Again, more on that later. And finally, we need to examine your archetype behavior and your shadow self. More about this tomorrow. But every one of you has 4 shadow selves. And you have them in different orders and sequences. You have a different hierarchy of shadow selves. It's what comes out when you become fearful. It's a reaction to a scenario situation. I want to point out which yours is, and I want to show you how to change it. And the way we're going to change it is by strengthening an archetype in you instead. More about that on tomorrow's content. All right, slides please. So that all happens very fast. And then what happens is this. All that processing happens within seconds. So this is what actually happens. This is the processing, but it's based on what's in this. So can we agree that you and I have to find out what's in here for you? Yes or no, guys? Because whatever's in here is affecting that. And that affects what you say yes to and what you say no to. And all of that processing changes how you think. So instantly, we see this opportunity. We process through these processes, through our past baggage, and our filters, as we call them, and that changes how you think. Now, you can only think in 2 ways. You either think in pictures or words. Either you see imagery or you talk to yourself, or both. And that picture and that imagery will then determine how you feel, your state, your emotional state. One of the things that successful people have to learn to do is to manage your emotional state. Can we agree upon that? Yes or no, guys? Because it would change one very important thing, and that is your decisions. Your decisions are radically affected by the state you're in when you're trying to make a decision. Now, can we agree to be even more successful, even happier, even more joyous, free? We're going to have to make some changes, therefore some new decisions. Come on, yes or no, guys? So therefore, we need to get in a state of decisiveness to make those choices. One thing I can tell you about successful people is they're making typically about 5 times more decisions per day than your average person. So we've got to build our decision-making muscle. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you understand. And that decision will therefore lead to, clearly, our actions, what we do or don't do. And our actions lead to our results. So, let's go backwards now. Let's go backwards. So, are we agreed that all of you here, because some kind of result is needed? You want some kind of new result, yes or no, guys? Whether it's more money, more happiness, new relationship, different body, healthy, whatever. But you want a different result. But shout out the answer, to go back a step. If you want to get better results, you have to change but to change your actions, you've got to make better quality. To make better quality decisions, you've got to manage your to manage your emotional state, you've got to change how you think is determined by these filters here that we've got to determine and find out, and those affect how you process unconsciously without even realizing you're doing it. So the only way we're going to get better results is for you to change something in there that's your operating system of the mind. Does that make sense? You've got to press that upgrade button. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you follow, please. All right? Everybody stand up, please. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up, please. Stand up, stand up, stand up. Okay, what I want you to do now is get into a group of 5. Move out of the spaces, because you need to go out to the wings. You need to get into a group of 5, and you need to be in a little circle. 5 in a little circle. So you're going to have to move out to the sides. You've got plenty of space at the front, space in the aisles. Find some way of doing that, please. A, B, C, D, and E. You need to choose an A, B, C, D, and E person. We are about to go into our first break. I have a request, though, please. I need all of you to leave this room, right? Because we've got more people need to get into this room that haven't been able to get in, because we are now oversubscribed, okay? So we can actually change the seating arrangement and actually bring the chairs close between each other to get a few more rows in the back, okay? So we need everyone to pick up your belongings, take everything, all your belongings, everything with you. We're going to take a break now for 30 minutes. That means we're back in this room at 11:45, okay? What time, guys? Please be on time, 11:45. Teas, coffees, etc. you can buy outside. But be back in this room at 11:45. We've got lots of amazing stuff coming. Please take all of your belongings with you. Do not leave anything in here, please. All your belongings.